The stars were dying. Ambassador Veltar stood before the great crystal screen in the Zephyrian Council chambers, watching the latest reports flow in from the outer rim worlds. Each red dot on the galactic map represented another solar system, consumed by the machines they called the Devourers. The mechanical horrors moved like a plague across space, turning entire worlds into raw materials for their endless expansion. "Show me the Kepler system again," Veltar said to the technician operating the display. The screen shifted to show what had once been a thriving star system with 7 inhabited worlds. Now, there was nothing but empty space and the skeletal remains of planets stripped down to their cores. The Devourers had taken everything. Every ship, every building, every living thing had been processed into components for more machines. The evacuation ships made it out, the technician reported, her voice shaking, but barely. "The Devourers are moving faster than our models predicted." Veltar's forearms trembled as she absorbed the information. Her people, the Zephyrians, had evolved on a world of gentle rains and abundant resources. Conflict was rare among her kind. When disputes arose, they were settled through careful discussion and compromise. The idea of total war was as foreign to them as breathing underwater. The chamber doors opened with a soft chime. Representatives from the other member species of the Galactic Council filed in. There was Kethmer of the Crystalline Collective, his translucent body reflecting the chamber's soft lighting. Behind him came the twin ambassadors of the Harvest Worlds, their plant-like forms swaying as they moved. Each species in the council had evolved on worlds of peace and plenty. None of them had experience with the kind of enemy they now faced. "The situation grows worse by the day," Kethmer announced as he took his place at the curved council table. "Our military advisors have run every simulation possible. Conventional warfare against the Devourers is useless. They adapt too quickly and turn our own weapons against us." "What about the defense fleets?" asked one of the Harvest World twins. "Gone," Veltar replied simply. "The Devourers analyzed our tactics, copied our ship designs, and built better versions. Our own technology is being used to destroy us." The council chamber fell silent, except for the gentle hum of the environmental systems. Windows, the capital world of Serenity Prime, sparkled in the light of its golden sun. Gardens covered every surface, and crystal spires reached toward the sky. It was a world that had never known war, built by people who had never needed to fight. For survival. "There must be something we can do," whispered the other Harvest World twin. "Some weapon we haven't tried, some strategy we haven't considered." General Mordok of the Zephyrian Defense Force stood from his seat. His usually immaculate uniform looked rumpled, and dark circles showed under his large eyes. "I have consulted with every military mind in our alliance. We are not warriors. Our ancestors never needed to be. We solve problems through cooperation and careful planning. But the Devourers don't negotiate. They don't compromise. They simply consume." "What are you saying?" Veltar asked, though she feared she already knew. "We need help from someone who understands warfare in ways we cannot," Mordok replied. "Someone whose people have fought and survived against impossible odds. Someone who knows how to win when losing means extinction." The council members looked at each other with growing understanding. For centuries, they had monitored other species across the galaxy. Most were like themselves, peaceful, reasonable beings who had evolved on stable worlds. But there were others, species that had clawed their way up from hostile environments, who had fought for every scrap of survival on worlds that tried to kill them daily. "You mean the warrior species?" Kethmer said slowly. "The ones from the Deathworlds?" Mordok nodded. "The ones we've always been afraid to contact because they seem too dangerous, too violent. Now that violence might be our only hope." Veltar moved to the communication console at the center of the chamber. Her fingers hesitated over the controls. Once they sent this message, there would be no taking it back. It would be inviting predators into their peaceful galaxy. "What will we say to them?" asked one of the twins. "The truth," Veltar replied. "That we are dying, and we need someone who knows how to kill." She began composing the message, her hands shaking as she typed. The words felt strange and wrong in her language, concepts her people had no proper terms for. But the meaning was clear enough. "People of the galaxy," she began. "We are the Zephyrian Council, speaking for 7 peaceful civilizations. We face an enemy that seeks to destroy all life. Our own methods have failed. We seek those who know the ways of war. We seek warriors. We seek heroes who can teach us to fight for our survival." The message would be broadcast on all known frequencies, sent to every corner of the galaxy where intelligent life might exist. Somewhere out there, Veltar hoped, was a species that could help them. Someone who had faced extinction and lived to tell about it. She didn't know that her message would reach a small blue world on the edge of a spiral arm, where a species called humans had spent their entire evolution fighting for survival on a planet that had tried to kill them with ice ages, asteroid impacts, predators, diseases, and natural disasters. She didn't know that these humans had turned warfare into an art form, had studied conflict and violence with the same dedication her people gave to philosophy and poetry. She only knew that without help, everything her people had built would be consumed by the machines, and the gentle light of civilization would go dark forever. Veltar pressed the transmission key, and the message began its journey across the stars. Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the alien message on her screen for the 3rd time. The translation software had worked overtime to convert the strange concepts into human language, but the meaning was clear enough. Someone out there was dying, and they wanted help from warriors. "Ma'am, we've confirmed the signal's origin," reported Lieutenant Torres from his station on the bridge of the Deep Space Monitoring Facility. "Came from the Andromeda sector, approximately 47 light years from Earth." Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. For 20 years, humanity had been quietly watching alien civilizations from the shadows. Earth's governments had agreed that first contact should wait until humanity was ready. These aliens seemed peaceful enough, but their technology was centuries ahead of human science. Making contact had always seemed too risky. Now they were asking for help with something humans understood very well. "Send a message to command," Sarah ordered. "Tell them we need an immediate conference with the First Contact Committee." 3 days later, Sarah found herself in a secure briefing room beneath the Swiss Alps. Around the table sat representatives from every major Earth government, along with the top military and scientific minds humanity had to offer. Dr. Marcus Rivera, the world's leading expert on alien psychology, pulled up the translated message on the main screen. "They're calling themselves the Zephyrian Council. Based on our observations, they represent at least 7 different species, all of them peaceful by our standards."
Peaceful?
Asked General Harrison, the gruff head of Earth's unified military command. "Think of the most diplomatic, non-violent culture in human history," Dr. Rivera replied. "Then imagine they never had any wars at all. These beings have spent thousands of years solving problems through discussion and compromise. They have no concept of total warfare. Now they're facing something that wants to kill them all." Sarah added, "These devourers sound like self-replicating machines. Von Neumann probes gone wrong." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Humanity had theorized about such threats for decades. Machines that could copy themselves using raw materials from planets and asteroids, spreading across the galaxy like a virus. It was the kind of enemy that could only be stopped by complete destruction. "What's our assessment of their military capabilities?" asked the Chinese representative, Captain Elena Vasquez. A former Special Forces operator who had transitioned to xenological studies stood up. "Based on our long-range observations, they have advanced energy weapons and defensive shields. Their ships are faster than ours, and their technology is more sophisticated. But their tactics are completely defensive. They fight like they're trying to avoid hurting anyone. Even the enemy," General Harrison asked. "Especially the enemy," Captain Vasquez confirmed. "We've observed 3 different conflicts involving Council species over the past decade. In each case, they tried to disable rather than destroy. They target weapons and engines, not life support or crew compartments. They actually try to minimize casualties on both sides." Commander James Park, a tactical analyst with experience in asymmetric warfare, leaned forward. "Against human opponents, that might work. Against machines that don't care about their own losses, it's suicide. So they need teachers," Sarah said. "Slowly, they need someone to show them how to fight dirty." "The question is whether we should get involved," said the European Union representative. This could expose humanity to threats we're not ready for. Dr. Rivera pulled up a star map showing the Devourer advance. If these machines continue expanding at their current rate, they'll reach the outer edge of human space in approximately 200 years. We can try to hide and hope they don't find us, or we can help stop them while they're still far away. Sarah studied the faces around the table. These were people who had spent their careers preparing for contact with alien civilizations. Now that contact had come in the form of a cry for help from people facing extinction. "I volunteer to lead the contact team," she said finally. "We'll need a small group. Bet diplomat, a scientist, and a military advisor." "I'll go," Dr. Rivera said immediately. "Someone needs to help them understand human psychology. They're going to be shocked by our methods." "Count me in," added Captain Vasquez. "They'll need someone who can teach small unit tactics and unconventional warfare." Commander Park nodded as well. "They'll need strategic planning that accounts for an enemy with no moral constraints." General Harrison frowned. "You realize these aliens are going to be horrified by us? Everything about human warfare violates their basic values." "Maybe," Sarah admitted. "But they asked for warriors. They asked for heroes. Sometimes those are the same thing." 2 months later, the human ship Tehran Resolve dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Serenity Prime system. The vessel was small by human military standards, but it carried the hopes of 2 species. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. "It's the Zephyrian Council." On the main screen appeared a being unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Dapsuter Veltar had 4 arms, large eyes, and skin that shifted color with her emotions. She spoke in a musical language that the ship's computers translated in real time. "Welcome, warriors from the distant stars," Veltar said, her skin showing patterns that Dr. Rivera recognized as excitement mixed with fear.
Oh.
"We are grateful that..." Someone answered our call for help. Sarah stepped forward. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth. We received your message about the Devourer threat. We're here to help." "You must understand," Veltar continued, her colors shifting to deep purple. "We have never encountered a species like yours. Your homeworld appears to be what we classify as a death world. The radiation levels, the gravitational stress, the atmospheric composition, the presence of so many predatory species. How did you survive long enough to develop space travel?" Dr. Rivera smiled grimly. "We survived by becoming the apex predators." "I don't understand," Veltar said, her skin now flickering between colors rapidly. "You will," Captain Vasquez replied, her hand unconsciously moving to the weapons at her side. "We're going to teach you how to hunt." The transmission ended, and the human ship continued towards Serenity Prime. Behind them, the beautiful garden world grew larger on the screens. Ahead of them lay the challenge of teaching peaceful beings how to wage total war against an enemy that showed no mercy. None of them knew that this first meeting would change both species forever. The aliens had prayed for heroes and humanity had answered. Whether that would prove to be salvation or something else entirely remained to be seen. The Zephyrian Council chamber had never been designed for war planning. The peaceful curves and soft lighting seemed wrong for the harsh discussions taking place around the crystal table. Admiral Chen spread out holographic displays showing Devourer movements while alien representatives tried not to look too disturbed by the human proposals. "You want us to destroy our own colonies?" Ambassador Veltar asked, her skin cycling through confused purple patterns. "The mining stations on Kepler 7 have families living there." Commander Park nodded calmly as he adjusted the tactical display. "Evacuate them first, then blow up the infrastructure. The Devourers are using those facilities to build more machines. Every factory and refinery you leave behind makes them stronger." The crystalline representative, Kethmer, vibrated with distress. "But those installations took decades to build. They represent the work of thousands of our people. And if you don't destroy them, the Devourers will use them to kill millions more," Captain Vasquez replied. She pointed to a section of the map where red indicators showed machine activity. "Look at what they did with your shipyards at Proxima Station. They turned your own construction facilities into weapons factories." Dr. Rivera watched the aliens struggle with concepts that humans found basic. These beings had evolved on worlds where cooperation meant survival. The idea of destroying something valuable to deny it to an enemy was as foreign to them as breathing methane. General Mordock of the Zephyrian Defense Force studied the human battle plans with growing horror. Their strategies assumed that acceptable. Losses include civilian casualties, cannot target population centers, even enemy ones. The Devourers don't have population centers, Admiral Chen explained patiently. They're machines. Every unit is a soldier, a worker, and a factory. All at once. There are no civilians in their forces. But what about captured aliens? Asked one of the Harvest World twins. Surely some of our people are still alive in the occupied zones. Humans exchanged glances. This was the hardest part of the conversation they had been dreading. We have to assume anyone in Devourer territory is either dead or beyond rescue, Commander Park said quietly. Any attempt to save them puts more lives at risk in warfare. Sometimes you have to write off the captured to protect the living. Alien representatives recoiled as if struck. Their skin colors shifted to patterns Dr. Rivera recognized as shock and revulsion. Two beings who spent centuries trying to save every individual life, the human concept of acceptable losses was monstrous. How can you think like this? Veltar whispered. How can you just abandon people? Because if we don't, everyone dies, Captain Vasquez answered bluntly. This is what warfare means when your enemy shows no mercy. Make the hard choices, or you lose everything. The training sessions that followed were even more difficult than the planning meetings. Human military advisors tried to teach alien soldiers how to think like predators. The aliens struggled with every lesson in the simulation center. Captain Vasquez watched a squad of Zephyrian soldiers practice urban combat. They moved too slowly, checked every corner for civilian presence, and refused to use weapons that might cause collateral damage. Stop, she called out, ending the simulation. You're all dead again. The enemy got past your positions and reached the evacuation ships. The squad leader, a tall Zephyrian named Tekmar, looked confused. But we followed proper procedures. We confirmed no civilians were in the target zone before firing. And while you were being careful, the Devourers killed 3,000 refugees, Vasquez replied. In real combat, hesitation kills more people than aggression does. We cannot simply spray energy fire everywhere, Tekmar protested. What if innocent beings are hiding in the buildings? Then they die anyway when the Devourers process the entire city, Vasquez said harshly. You have to choose between maybe killing a few civilians and definitely losing everyone. The breakthrough came when Dr. Rivera suggested a different approach. Instead of teaching aliens to think like human soldiers, he helped them understand warfare in terms they could accept. Think of the Devourers as a disease, he explained to a mixed group of alien officers. Not an enemy to defeat honorably, but a plague to eliminate completely. You don't negotiate with cancer. You don't try to wound it. You cut it out completely. What? Comparisons seemed to help. These species understood ecosystem management and disease control. They could accept the need for harsh measures to protect the larger community. Commander Park built on this idea during strategic planning sessions. Your worlds are like healthy forests, he told the council. The Devourers are like wildfire. Sometimes you have to cut down healthy trees to create fire breaks. Sometimes you have to sacrifice one valley to save the whole forest. Slowly, the aliens began to understand human tactical thinking. They learned about feints and misdirection, about targeting supply lines instead of armies, about psychological warfare and information attacks. Each lesson was painful for beings raised on cooperation and openness. The hardest concept was deception. Human warfare relied heavily on lies, false information, and betrayal of enemy expectations. For species that had built their entire civilization on trust and honest communication, the idea of deliberate deception was nearly impossible to grasp. You want us to fake surrender? Asked General Mordock during one particularly difficult session. You want us to pretend we are beaten so we can ambush them? It's called a tactical retreat, Admiral Chen explained. You give ground to draw the enemy into a trap. It's one of the oldest strategies in human warfare. But that is lying, Mordock protested. How can we build a battle plan on dishonesty? Because the alternative is extinction, Chen replied. The Devourers don't care about your honor. They don't care about fair fighting. They care about consuming everything in their path. You can maintain your principles and die, or you can learn to fight dirty and live. The weeks of training began to show results. Alien soldiers learned to shoot first and identify targets later. Alien commanders learned to sacrifice small units to save larger forces. Alien leaders learned to make decisions based on necessity rather than morality. But the cost was visible in every alien face. Their skin colors had grown duller, their movements more cautious. Learning to think like predators was changing them in fundamental ways. Are we becoming monsters? Veltar asked Dr. Rivera during a quiet moment between meetings. Rivera considered the question carefully. You're becoming survivors, he said finally. Sometimes those are the same thing. Sometimes they're not. The important thing is remembering which one you want to be when the war is over. Outside the council chambers, reports continued to arrive from the front lines. The Devourers were still advancing, still consuming everything in their path. But now, for the first time, they were meeting resistance that hurt them. The aliens were learning to fight like humans. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. The battle for the Meridian system would be the first real test of everything the aliens had learned from their human teachers. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Combined Fleet flagship, watching as Zephyrian and human ships moved into position around the besieged colony world. Devourer scouts have detected our approach, reported the communications officer. They're moving to intercept with a force 3 times our size. Commander Park studied the tactical display with satisfaction. Perfect. They're reacting exactly as we predicted. Ambassador Veltar, who had insisted on observing the battle firsthand, looked confused. How is being outnumbered 3-1 perfect? Because they think they know what we're going to do, Captain Vasquez explained from her position at the tactical station. They've analyzed every previous alien battle. They expect you to form defensive lines and try to protect every ship. On the display, the Devourer fleet approached in perfect formation. The machines moved with mechanical precision, their dark ships bristling with weapons copied from a dozen conquered species. They had adapted alien technology and improved it, creating vessels that should have been superior to anything the Council could field. All ships, execute Plan Mongoose, Admiral Chen ordered. The alien fleet did something the Devourers had never seen before. Instead of forming battle lines, they scattered in all directions. Ships that should have been protecting each other suddenly abandoned their positions and fled toward empty space. Now they'll think we're retreating, General Mordock said from his command ship. The Zephyrian officer had been one of the fastest learners in human tactical methods. They will pursue to finish us off. The Devourer fleet took the bait. Their ships broke formation to chase what appeared to be a routed enemy. Individual Devourer vessels raced after alien ships that seemed to be fleeing in panic. Phase 2. Chen announced. The fleeing alien ships suddenly reversed course, but instead of attacking the Devourers that had been chasing them, they targeted something else entirely. Hidden among the asteroid fields surrounding Meridian's outer moon were dozens of small human vessels, invisible to Devourer sensors, until they began broadcasting. Trojan horse deployment successful, reported Commander Park. All infiltration units are active. For 3 weeks, human engineers had been working in secret. While the aliens engaged in obvious preparations for battle, small human teams had been slipping through Devourer sensor nets in stealth vessels, barely larger than fighter craft. Their mission had nothing to do with direct combat. The Devourers suddenly found their own ships turning against them. Weapon systems fired on their own fleets. Navigation computers sent vessels into collision courses with asteroids. Communications networks began broadcasting false orders that spread chaos through their formations. What is happening to them? Veltar asked, watching in amazement as the superior Devourer fleet began destroying itself. We've been introducing viruses into their network for weeks, Dr. Rivera explained. Not biological viruses, information viruses. Bad data that spreads through their systems like a disease. The genius of the human plan became clear as the battle progressed. The Devourer's greatest strength was their ability to share information instantly across their entire network. Every unit learned from the experiences of every other unit, making them adapt and improve at incredible speed. But humans had turned that strength into a weakness. The false information spreading through the Devourer network wasn't just random errors. It was carefully crafted lies designed to make their adaptive systems reach wrong conclusions. When Devourer units tried to analyze human tactics, they found patterns that didn't exist. When they attempted to predict alien movements, their calculations were based on corrupted data. The machines became trapped in loops of bad information, each cycle making their responses less effective. Devourer formation is collapsing, reported the tactical officer. Estimate 40% of their fleet is now operating on compromised data. The alien ships, following human-taught strategies, pressed their advantage ruthlessly. They targeted damaged Devourer vessels first, preventing them from sharing accurate information with the rest of the fleet. They used the machine's own communication frequencies to spread more false data. Captain Vasquez coordinated the ground assault while the space battle raged above. Alien soldiers trained in human tactics no longer tried to minimize casualties or preserve infrastructure. They struck hard and fast, targeting the Devourer command nodes that controlled planetary operations. Zephyrian 3rd Battalion is requesting permission to pull back, came a report from the surface. They're taking heavy casualties. Denied, Vasquez replied without hesitation. They maintain position until the primary objective is secured. 6 months ago, such an order would have been unthinkable. No alien commander would have sacrificed soldiers for strategic advantage, now trained by humans who understood that wars were won by accepting necessary losses. They held their positions even as friends died around them. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Devourer fleet was scattered debris floating around Meridian's star. The machines that had seemed unstoppable just weeks before had been reduced to raw materials. But the cost was visible in every alien face. General Mordok's skin had lost its natural color patterns, replaced by the dull gray that marked deep emotional trauma. The Harvest World twins moved with none of their species' natural grace, their plant-like forms bent under the weight of what they had learned to do. "We won," Veltar said quietly, staring at the tactical display showing their victory. "Yes," Admiral Chen replied. "You fought like humans." The comment wasn't entirely a compliment, and everyone in the room knew it. The aliens had proven they could match human ruthlessness when necessary. They'd learned to deceive, to sacrifice, to fight without mercy against an enemy that showed none. "The other Devourer fleets will adapt to these tactics," Commander Park warned. "They'll learn from this defeat and prepare countermeasures. Then we'll teach you new ways to fight," Captain Vasquez promised. "Humans have been fighting adaptive enemies for millions of years. We know how to stay one step ahead." Dr. Rivera watched the alien officers as they processed the victory and its implications. They had saved Meridian, but they had done it by abandoning everything their species had traditionally stood for. The peaceful beings who had sent that first desperate message across the stars were gone, replaced by warriors who could match human cunning and human brutality. "Is this what we wanted?" Veltar asked him privately, as the fleet prepared to return home. Rivera considered the question carefully. "You wanted to survive," he said finally. "This is what survival looks like when the universe doesn't care about your principles." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying news of victory back to the Council worlds. Behind them, Meridian began the slow process of rebuilding. The colony would survive, protected by beings who had learned to think like predators. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the Devourers had appeared, the galaxy's peaceful species had hope. They had found teachers who could show them how to fight monsters. Whether they could remain themselves while learning such lessons was a question that would haunt them long after the last machine was destroyed. 6 months after the Battle of Meridian, the last Devourer fleet was nothing but scrap metal drifting in the void between stars. The mechanical plague that had threatened to consume the galaxy was finally dead. Its adaptive algorithms no match. For human cunning and alien determination working together, Admiral Chen stood in the same Zephyrian Council chamber where she had first met the peaceful species that had begged for help. The room looked the same, with its soft curves and gentle lighting, but but everything else had changed. The beings seated around the crystal table were warriors now, marked by the hard choices they had learned to make. "The threat is over, General," Mordok reported, his once bright skin now permanently dulled to gray. "Our combined fleets have eliminated the last devourer stronghold in the Outer Rim. The galaxy is safe." Safe, Ambassador Veltar repeated the word as if testing its meaning. Her forearms moved restlessly, a nervous habit she had developed during the war. "Yes, we are safe. But what have we become?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a battlefield. Round the table, representatives from 7 species struggled with the same thoughts. They had saved their civilizations, but the cost had been their innocence. Captain Vasquez pulled up holographic displays showing the reconstruction efforts across Council space. 15 worlds are being rebuilt. The Devourer technology has been repurposed for construction and manufacturing. Your people will be better equipped to defend themselves if another threat emerges. Another threat, Kethmer of the Crystalline Collective said, his translucent form flickering with distress. 6 months ago, we could not imagine that such things existed, and we planned for the next war before the current one is even finished. Dr. Rivera had been watching the aliens carefully throughout the meeting. The psychological changes in the Council species were profound. Beings that had evolved to solve problems through cooperation now thought in terms of tactical advantage and acceptable losses. The war had saved their bodies, but fundamentally altered their souls. "We need to discuss the future," Admiral Chen said carefully. "The human delegation has received an offer from the Council to join your galactic alliance. Our governments are grateful, but we need to address some practical concerns." "What concerns?" Veltar asked, though her changing skin color suggested. She already knew Commander Park activated another display, this one showing strategic assessments prepared by human analysts. "Our species have very different approaches to conflict resolution. What we consider normal defensive measures, you consider acts of aggression. What you consider reasonable diplomatic solutions, we consider dangerous naivety." The truth was uncomfortable but undeniable. During the Reconstruction, human military advisors had recommended maintaining standing armies, intelligence networks, and defensive preparations that made the aliens deeply uncomfortable. The humans thought in terms of deterrence and readiness. The aliens still hoped for lasting peace. "Your people want us to keep building weapons," said one of the Harvest World twins. "You want us to prepare for wars that may never come. History shows that the wars you don't prepare for are the ones that destroy you," Captain Vasquez replied. "The Devourers weren't the first galactic threat, and they won't be the last. But we cannot live in constant fear," the other twin protested. "We cannot sacrifice our values permanently for temporary security." Dr. Rivera leaned forward in his chair. "That's exactly the problem. For humans, there is no such thing as temporary security. On our world, threats never really go away. They just change form. We've learned to live with that reality." The discussion that followed was painful for everyone involved. The aliens had learned to fight like humans, but they couldn't learn to think like humans without ceasing to be themselves. The psychological framework that made humans effective, warriors, was incompatible with the cooperative mindset that defined Council's civilization. "Perhaps," Veltar said slowly, "we need a different kind of arrangement." Admiral Chen nodded. He had been expecting this moment since the first day of training. "You're suggesting separation, not abandonment," Veltar clarified quickly. "Partnership, but at a distance. You've given us the tools we need to defend ourselves. But living alongside beings who see threats everywhere would change us in ways we cannot accept." The compromise they reached was unprecedented in galactic history. Humanity would establish a defensive perimeter around Council space, serving as early warning and first response to external threats. Human fleets would patrol the void between galaxies, watching for dangers that peaceful civilizations might not recognize until too late. In exchange, the Council would provide humans with access to their advanced technology and scientific knowledge. The species would remain allies, but they would not integrate their societies. The cultural gap was simply too wide to bridge. "We will be your guardians in the dark," Admiral Chen said formally. "The watchers who stand between your worlds and the threats you should never have to face. And if we become the threat? Asked General Mordok quietly. If our warriors, trained in human methods, decide that preemptive action is necessary against potential enemies? The question chilled everyone in the room. The aliens had learned to fight, but they had also learned to think like predators. There was no guarantee they would limit their new skills to defensive purposes. That's a risk we'll have to monitor, Commander Park admitted. Part of our role will be keeping watch on the Watchers. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Rivera found himself walking with Veltar through the crystal gardens outside the council chambers. The alien's skin showed patterns he had learned to recognize as deep sadness mixed with gratitude. We asked for heroes, she said softly. We thought heroes would save us and leave us unchanged. Heroes don't exist, Rivera replied. There are only people who do what needs to be done, regardless of the cost. Sometimes that looks heroic from the outside, and sometimes it looks monstrous. Sometimes he agreed. The important thing is remembering the difference between doing monstrous things and becoming a monster. You saved your people. What you do with that gift is up to you. 3 weeks later, the human fleet departed Council space for the last time. Behind them, the aliens began the long process of rebuilding their civilization while learning to live with the capacity for violence they could never again forget. Admiral Chun's final log entry was transmitted to Earth along with the formal treaties establishing humanity's role as the galaxy's immune system. The mission is complete, she recorded. We answered their call for help and taught them to survive. Whether we taught them to be heroes or monsters remains to be seen, perhaps. In the end, there is no difference. The Terran Resolve jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying its crew toward the edge of known space. There, in the void between galaxies, humanity would stand watch against threats the peaceful species should never have to face. The aliens had prayed for heroes, and humans had answered. The price of that salvation would echo through both civilizations for generations to come. But the galaxy was safe, and sometimes that was enough.